Hello everyone, welcome to Travel Massive Live. Today we have a speaker joining us from Melbourne. This is Jen Fein. She's the founder of the group travel booking platform YouLi. She's going to introduce herself in a few more details in a bit. I just want to let you know that if you have any questions for Jen, you can put them in the chat box and we'll get back to them after the presentation. Yes, whatever is on your mind, please use the chat box. We will talk to you. This is an engaging webinar, interactive webinar. So we'll be happy to hear your thoughts and your wonderings and answer all your questions. Jen, you can take it from here.
Excellent. All right, well, I just thought I would share my screen and get the presentation started. So my name is Jen Fein and I'm the co-founder of You Live to Travel. And our platform is called YouLi. And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout the presentation, but effectively we're the Shopify for group travel. So I'm actually here to share with you my insights as a travel tech founder into finding the right tech for your travel business, right? Because for non-technical people, this can be really intimidating, but I'm here to tell you that it's not that bad. And actually it's amazing the kind of technology that you have access to in this day and age. And so I'll just give you a few little definitions and tips to make sure you make the most out of that. And really that's about understanding the difference between platforms, mobile apps, marketplaces, and of course, focusing on your core business problem and keeping more of the revenue from any online bookings. And that's one of the places that our platform really shines. So we'll get into that as we proceed. So let me just move to the next slide. So I always like to start with what actually matters. So I'm a technology person, so I love technology for technology's sake, but you're travel people and you love travel, not technology, which is totally fair. So the best way to go about this is to really focus on your key business problem that you think technology can solve and what a solution would look like. And then go look for a technology solution that's cost effective and can scale with you. So trying not to get stuck with something that won't allow you to grow, or maybe is something that's easy to change out. So you're not too committed to it too early. And that really plays into the fact that you're really gonna evolve your technology over time. So as you identify problems, you're going to adopt technology, and slowly but surely, you're going to build up what we call a tech stack. So just like Rome wasn't built in a day, you're not going to build your tech stack in a day. So this presentation is really about thinking how you're going to pick the pieces and how you're going to start to think about bringing them together. So when I talk about focusing on your business problem, I like to break it down into 3 different areas. So while I'm talking, I would love for you to pop into the chat the problems that you see here that you think are your key problems, and then I can kind of tune the webinar based on that. So, and of course you can have more than one, that's totally okay. So, sorry, I'm just gonna pull up the chat here on the right-hand side. All right, so the first one is finding new customers. So if this is your problem, well, really, it's everyone's problem. Acquisition is the most expensive of these problems, and typically that's going to be solved by some sort of Google search, either search engine optimization, so that's organic traffic, or SEM, which is paid traffic, social media, working through partners, and of course, marketplaces. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Then we have monetizing your audience. Now, if this is your problem, look at you. This is the best kind of problem to have. So this could be, for example, you've built an audience on Facebook or on Instagram, and now you need to figure out how to monetize them. You can do that with ads if you're driving traffic to a blog, or through affiliate partnerships, or through starting your own tours or running your own tours. And that means you need a booking platform. And then finally, scaling operations. So this is the kind of category that technology is amazing at solving. And you'll find that if your business is growing and you suffer every time a customer comes on board, that means this is your problem. You're probably stuck in spreadsheet land. Maybe you have a basic CRM, but it's not talking to things. So you're probably looking for specific platforms that are going to solve the pain points there that allow you to really grow with joy instead of with pain. So these are the 3 problems that I like to think about. Feel free to kind of pop into the chat the ones that you would love for me to talk more about as this presentation continues. So the first area I want to focus on is, what is a platform? So I sort of use that word because YouLi is a platform. We've talked about booking platforms. There's payment platforms. So what is this? Well, there's lots of definitions out there, but the one that I'm focused on here is a collection of services that's shared by users, and that's usually delivered via the web or a mobile app or potentially an API, which is machine to machine. So this is kind of a technical definition, but you probably understand the difference between sort of a custom built technology solution that's just for you versus something that's shared by many users. And that's the difference between a custom build and a platform. So why do you care what a platform is? Well, you care because it is a much cheaper way for you to take advantage of advanced technology. Because platforms, it's compared to a custom built solution, means that you can self-configure something rather than having it custom built for you. And that means everyone shares that base cost of the build, and you still get to kind of make it your own. Now, maybe the best way to think about this is if you were building a house, you could either go to an architect and have it completely drawn from scratch, everything exactly the way you want it. It's your perfect house. That's going to be very expensive to build and probably really expensive to maintain. The other option is to go to a builder who kind of has a general blueprint for a house, certain number of rooms or styles or windows, things like that. And then you get to pick maybe a different flooring or a slightly different paint color or something like that. So you get to configure it, but it's basically the same from person to person. So you still get a great house that's kind of personalized, but it's a lot cheaper than building it yourself from scratch. So hopefully that analogy helps to distinguish between sort of a platform versus a custom build. I find that people tend to understand examples more than definitions. So just really quickly, here are some examples of platforms. Now you might be surprised to see some things on here because basically everything these days that you use is a platform. So even Facebook and Instagram, they are platforms, and a lot of things are built on top of them. Google Analytics is a platform. Hootsuite is a platform for social media sharing. MailChimp is a platform for email sending. And our platform is a booking platform for group travel operators. So all of these things specialize in a particular area. Some of them do more, some of them do just one tiny little thing. And hopefully they all start talking to each other. And Zapier, if you haven't checked it out, is a really cool one. It actually starts to plug these pieces together. So as you pick up platforms for different problems, things like Zapier can actually make them talk to each other. So that can eliminate the extra custom build that you might generally have had to do in the past to integrate your solutions. So this all kind of brings me to, what is a tech stack, right? So one of the things that we used to talk about in technology is a tech stack is like all the software that you would use to build something. But something has changed over the last 10 years. It is now possible to build your tech stack completely out of platforms. You can now run a business without having a software developer write a single line of code just for you. That is amazing. 10 years ago, if you needed anything on the web, you had to pay a developer to custom build it for you. And that was expensive. And today, you can get started. You can get a website up on Wix. You could put a listing up on Airbnb. You could start reaching customers on Facebook. You can start automating that process on Hootsuite. You can start building loyalty with email through MailChimp. And you can collect survey responses through Google Forms. All that stuff you used to have to build custom. And today, you can sign up for free and use a lot of these tools immediately without actually any money out of your pocket. That is a huge transformation of technology being available to businesses that are not tech businesses. So that being said, not all of you will be able to build your entire business on top of platforms. A lot of you will still find that you will need to do a combination of platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Google Analytics, Hootsuite, but then also have to still do a custom build. For example, maybe your website's a little more complicated than Wix can handle. So you actually have to get that built in the cloud, and that then has hosted databases and servers. And so you still do need a tech partner to do that piece. And then they worry about all those ugly details, right? So obviously, the less of that you have to deal with, the better. So the more platforms you can put in your tech stack, the better off you'll be. And the more cost effective it will be to maintain it, because every amount of business logic that you build into the custom built side of it means you have to pay attention and keep it up to date. And everything that the platforms do, they have to handle all the updates. They're the ones worrying about hackers. They're the ones worrying about security updates. So you really want to be pushing your business towards using as many platforms as possible and doing as little custom building as you can. So I keep throwing this word platform out there. And I think some of you might be wondering, well, how does that relate to like a mobile app? And the reality is that basically every mobile app that's out there is built on top of some backend or platform, right? Facebook has an app, but it talks to the Facebook platform. There is no such thing as just a sort of standalone sort of mobile app. It always has a platform behind it. And what's really interesting that's happened recently, and something you guys should be looking at, is whether or not you actually need a mobile app for your business, because in a lot of cases, you might find that responsive web applications are replacing that need. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's just something that's really changed in the last few years, especially as the App Store has gotten so much more crowded. And finally, marketplaces. So what we're seeing is that everything's a platform. Well, shockingly, a marketplace is also a platform that connects buyers to sellers. And so those of you who have said that you're looking to acquire customers, you're probably looking for a marketplace as at least one of the pieces of your tech stack, because they are going to take your products and help you find more buyers for those products. Of course, they will take a cut of all of those transactions. So that leads me into the cost of platforms. So what I led with is that they are cheaper than building it yourself, which is definitely true when you're starting out, but also only true if you select them well. So that gets back to, what is your problem? And are you choosing the right platform that's actually going to solve the business problem that you have? So the first category of platforms I'll talk about is what we call white labeled SaaS, or software as a service. So this is like MailChimp. YouLi is a software as a service product. Typeform if you're doing online surveys. Resd if you're doing sort of tour bookings. And these all offer their services for a subscription fee. You're a business, you sign up, you pay either a monthly or annual fee to use their software. So you're sort of renting the software effectively. The other one is Marketplace. So this is like TourRadar, Retreat.guru, Airbnb. These offer marketplaces where travel products can be listed, and then travelers can search and find the ones that they want. Of course, they charge a per booking commission fee, which can be, like in the case of Airbnb, to 20% in some cases. Now, they offer a lot of value, but they also take a very large cut. So one of the things that we find in conversations with our clients is that marketplaces are a great place to do your early acquisition, but as you build your brand and as you get well known and you start to build loyalty within your segment, you can actually lower your costs substantially by having a white labeled solution, like a white labeled SaaS product, so you can direct your customers to book with you and drop your booking fee to either a small amount or zero. So as you think about choosing solutions that allow you to scale, you might think about marketplaces fitting in as a certain source of acquisition, but your sort of ongoing growth will be fueled by your ability to get direct sales to your solutions using a white labeled software solution. So basically switching percentage booking fees into flat subscription fees. And then finally, ads. Now this is a funny one. Sometimes people don't think about this, that they're paying for Facebook because they're technically free, right? So Facebook's a platform and it is a way to acquire customers. You can put a page out there, you can talk to people, they can discover you. And, you know, yes, it takes your time, absolutely. And that's probably their biggest cost to your business. But keep in mind that they also are distracting your customers. So while it's technically free, they are monetizing through ads, and those ads might be taking your customers away from you and sending them somewhere else. So you really want to think about the actual true cost of platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TripAdvisor, and of course, sort of mix all of these into your tech stack, right? So recognizing that that the sort of social media platforms are great acquisition, marketplaces are great acquisition, but they have these costs. And ultimately, you're looking to own your audiences and then manage those on software that you control. And of course, we recommend white labeled software as a service products like ours to do that kind of thing. So when you are going out there and exploring platforms to solve your business problems, these are some of the questions that we really recommend you think about and ask. So first of all, is it free to start? Because if it's not free to start, you should be a little bit worried that they aren't willing to let you try it out. So pretty much, I think everything on this list will let you try for free. And these days that's pretty standard, so you should expect it. But that being said, don't get too caught in that, because make sure that that it scales the way that you want your business to scale. So MailChimp is free to get started, but if you don't watch out, you might suddenly bump into the premium tiers before you know it. And if your business isn't ready for that, then that can be a real shock. So make sure you understand how the pricing scales on something like that. Google Analytics, always free, because of course Google wants your data, but it has costs in other ways in terms of the time it takes for you to learn it and get data out of it. So there are actually analytics products that cost money, but they can give you a lot more value. So these are the kinds of things you're going to be looking at in terms of the total cost of ownership. So sure, it could be free, like Google Analytics, but if you can't make sense of the reports that it gives you, is it really free? Nah, it kind of just ends up being a waste of your time. So it might actually be cheaper for you to find an alternative analytics provider that actually gives you the reports you need, just like that, than to spend hours and hours stressing over how do I figure out what's actually going on with my data. So we call that TCO, or the total cost of ownership. So whenever you're making a platform decision, you can't just look at the immediate price. You have to look at how much is this going to save me, especially in terms of how much time it's going to save me. And of course, that brings us to the next point, integrations. Each of these platforms tends to specialize in an area. Like Squarespace builds websites, but they're just particular kinds of websites. And so, you know, if you've got a form on there to capture information, that should integrate with your CRM or your mail provider. So you want to make sure that when that form gets submitted, it's automatically going into, let's say, your HubSpot CRM. And then if that is connected up to send email, then that should flow through really seamlessly. And you should look at these, and if they don't fit together, then you should reconsider your choice. So you should really be looking at things that are talking to each other and automating things, because that's what tech does best. So integrations is a really challenging topic, and but you should be able to find any platform you look at should tell you what they integrate with, and you just check and see, and then make your decisions based on that. So the final point on asking questions to your platforms is data. So when I'm talking about, this email form that captures their name and their email address and sends it to your CRM and then triggers an email, well, okay, well, who owns that data? So depending on your solution, that might be you, or it might be the marketplace. So that's something you wanna kind of take a look at, is whether or not the data that's being collected and managed is data that you own or data that the platform owns. So make sure you're very clear on that. Oh, do we have a question? So open source or closed source. So that's a really interesting one, because so open source software or closed source software, any of these platforms probably use a combination of those. So we definitely do. We have some closed source software that we use from Microsoft, but we also use plenty of open source software to develop our platform. So if you're using platforms, you're actually not writing any code. So you don't have to worry if it's open source or closed source. If you are custom building a solution, then the sort of open and closed. Oh, hello, Mark. Oh, okay, no question there. So, yeah, the sort of open source, closed source conversation is really a conversation that the developers that you're working with might have, and that can definitely be a factor in terms of cost. So closed source software tends to be more expensive and open source software tends to be cheaper. And there are many debates about which ones are better or worse. But as you can see, Microsoft is still alive and well, so there is still a place for closed source software, but Google has made its fortune on a lot of open source software, but of course, the thing that they care most about, which is their search algorithm, is very closed source. So for you, I think the best thing to think about with these platforms is, rather than about the source code or like the software that's used to run these platforms, for you, it's about open or closed data. So thinking about, if you put data into the system, do you get it back out? Can you access that? Or is that data now belong to that platform instead? And I think that's probably the next level conversation that platforms kind of have opened up. Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the chat there. That's a great example. So yeah, the WordPress.com versus WordPress.org. So yeah, WordPress.org is where you can go get a free copy of WordPress. You can go install that yourself and you can go run that anywhere. But you have to be technical enough to know how to set that all up and know how big your machine needs to be and where to host it. WordPress.com is a platform where you just go push a button, launch a WordPress site, and you're configuring your settings and focused on your content instead of focused on what server and what country it's in and all of those kinds of things that you have to do if you want to take advantage of something like WordPress.org, which is free software. So again, it's that whole kind of trade-off, like the more free it is in terms of money tends to mean the more time you have to spend on it. Whereas the more it costs, it tends to be that they're providing a value add. They're making it much easier for you to actually get it set up quickly. My lights seem to have turned off in here, so there we go. Any tips evaluating APIs? Yeah, well, actually, all right. So we'll talk about APIs maybe in the context of payment gateways. Because probably one of the best examples of a company that does APIs right is Stripe. So Stripe is a growing payment gateway, and they are very focused on their APIs. So usually customers sort of go to Stripe via a platform like ours. So Stripe is our preferred gateway for customers. We also connect with Square. So the best way to think about APIs is the fact that you can come to a platform like ours and we provide that value add of kind of bringing together itineraries and bookings and tasks and documents, and we put all this functionality together for you in one place. And then behind the scenes, we're actually connecting that into Stripe for payments, and then we connect into we put stuff out on the App Store and all of these kinds of things. Now, how do we do that? Well, we do that with APIs. So we're connecting to those other services on your behalf using APIs. If you're custom building solutions, then you're going to be speaking directly to those APIs, or your developer is going to be writing the software that connects to the Stripe APIs or the Square APIs. So what's an API? Application programming interface. It's a technical acronym that basically just means this machine can talk to this machine in the standard way. So when a booking comes into YouLi, it's a $500 deposit. We send in a standard way that information over to Stripe. Stripe verifies that, puts the transaction through on their credit card, and sends us back verification that that's been done. The API gives us certainty and security so that we can tell our clients, hey, you just got paid. And we don't have to hold the credit card information because Stripe has done that for us. So we get to sort of pass off that very specialized function to Stripe because they have these amazing APIs that make it safe and secure for us to do that. But yet at the same time, still display a really friendly message to our customers on the other side. Hopefully that was a sort of friendly description of APIs. And anybody who does want to talk to me more about this in technical detail, feel free to message me. Thank you. So a little bit more on payment gateways. What the heck is a payment gateway? Well, these are the guys that move the money around the world. And so I've just talked about two, Stripe and Square. PayPal is obviously the big monster out there that's been around for a long time. But they all do things slightly better or worse. So for example, Stripe has amazing APIs, so developers love working with them. Square, they're okay, they're catching up. So, and PayPal has higher fees, but more customer trust and loyalty. So they each have their own advantages, and you have to pick the right one based on their fee per transaction and their per charge type. So you might actually get a charge because you have a US customer purchasing an Australian dollar product. And so you're going to get an extra fee because it's a US card buying an Australian denominated product. So that's on top of then the foreign transaction fee that gets applied when that gets converted. So you need to be looking at sort of multiple sort of fee structures there. And also don't forget about refund fees. These guys will charge you if there's a sort of a card refund request. The other thing to look at is actually reputation. So this is an interesting one because there are some platforms out there like WeTravel, for example, that white labels the payment gateway. So they promote it as their own gateway. And when your transactions go through, they actually go through their sort of one account with their gateway that they use. So you could potentially get your customers' cards could get rejected based on the reputation of all of the traffic that's going through those connections. Whereas if you had a direct account with PayPal or Stripe, they would build a reputation based on just your customers. So that has pros and cons, right? Because of course, WeTravel does lots of traffic, and so they could have a good reputation that's already built up. And if you have no reputation, that can be better. But if you have a reputation or you want to build one, then you might not want to get stuck in that sort of combination of all of these people in the same category. So if you want to build your own reputation with a payment gateway, such that you have a sort of lower chance of getting card rejections because they profile your customers and know what your customers look like, then you'll probably want a direct account. What's the best approach for finding a developer if you've never worked with developers before? My developer charged me $5,000 and took 2 months to deliver. Yeah, so here's the thing. I started by saying these days you can pick platforms instead of custom building. And the reason why I say that is because unfortunately, there's a lot of developers out there that understand their customers don't know anything about technology and they take advantage of that. So they charge them a lot of money and then they deliver whenever they want. I've heard horror stories where they actually maybe they deliver a solution, but they don't deliver the passwords. So, you don't actually own what you just bought because you can't access it and move it to another provider. So they kind of hold you hostage. Whereas with a platform, especially if you pick it properly, you don't have that sort of huge upfront charge of $5,000 to build it. And you know exactly what you're getting because you get to trial it. So you get to log on, try it out, say, so if you go on to MailChimp and you sign up, you can immediately see what that looks like and decide whether or not that solves your problem. If it does, great, sign up, use it. If you're tired of using it, close your account. And you only pay for what you've used. So the problem with the question of like how to pick a good developer, know somebody who can recommend a developer for you is my best recommendation. Unfortunately, the internet is full of people who will lie to you, and your best bet is to know somebody who gives you a recommendation on a developer. If you are looking to build a travel website, you can talk to us. We do those on occasion. So that's something you can chat with us about. And we could potentially refer you to a developer if we don't solve the problem that you're looking for. But yeah, that's a great question, but a very hard one. And that is why we do recommend as much as possible, not custom building, but actually choosing platforms instead. So, which leads us to booking platforms. Yes, thank you. Alex is saying, yeah, look at the best solution based on your needs. Absolutely. And hopefully this presentation is kind of giving you some things to think about, and basically go out, look for platforms, find the ones that suit you. Where they don't suit you, get a developer to help you build the missing pieces. So try to build the least amount possible. And so we, of course, care about booking platforms because we fit into that category. We provide a booking module on top of the itineraries and then tasks and documentation management. So you want to look at commissions and booking fees. You want to see whether or not you can get paid through other channels besides just credit cards. So we, for example, work with a lot of charities who do donation pages, and we integrate with those solutions as well as bank transfer. So you want to make sure, and I think a number of these different platforms kind of offer different ways of getting paid. You just want to make sure. And then you want to look at how is the payment gateway work? Do you bring it with you? So for example, you already have a Square account. Does the platform integrate with Square, or do you have to switch to their payment gateway? So these are things you need to look at. And then is there an exclusivity agreement? These days, they better be giving you an awful lot of value for an exclusivity agreement because it's your customers, it's your product. So kind of getting tracked into an exclusivity agreement, they better be bringing you a lot of business for that. So look at the fine print, and always ask yourself what happens after that booking comes through. So where does that go? How do you manage it? And that gets into that kind of scaling operations question. So if you get a really good booking platform that's sending you a lot of bookings, but you don't have a really good process for making sure that those get handled well, then that can cause a problem because you're not building that loyalty from the really happy customers. And I wanted to touch on mobile apps really quickly because I have encountered a lot of people who sort of say, oh, well, all the travelers are on mobile these days, so I have to have a mobile app. And we say, well, how are you going to get them to download this app? And so realistically, it's more about getting yourself into an app that is already on their phone. So I know a lot of travel partners work with WhatsApp as one of their main ways of having conversations with people instead of building a chat app, right? So again, it's about finding that platform like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or something like that, integrating that into your website so that when people want to talk to you, they use this chat app that's already on their phone. Rather than paying someone to build you an app, we came across a client who had built their own custom app. They rolled it out and then never used it. So they wasted nearly $100,000, and then it wasn't very good. And because it's hard to build really good apps, and they never got the value that they were looking for. So think really hard before you think about your own mobile app. But when you're looking at a platform, you should always be looking at whether or not they provide an app with that platform. Facebook does, for example, MailChimp does. A lot of these companies offer apps to go with their platforms. And of course, we believe that responsive web apps are actually really good for delivering content to your travelers because everyone's got a web browser on their phone. And these days, responsive web apps, meaning web pages that look good on mobile or optimized for mobile, they're usually enough. And actually, that's something you want to look at when you're looking at your website builder. So this is actually one of the downsides of a custom built website. If you custom build a website, you better make sure they're building it to be responsive for mobile. Because if you don't, then you're gonna have to pay them to rewrite it or write a mobile version. So this is a trick that developers might play on you. So make sure that they're building it from scratch to be responsive. And that should not be that much more these days than just building sort of a desktop friendly website. So if you are still thinking about a mobile app and you're thinking, I really, really need one, then you might want to think about who it's for. Is that for you as the administrator, or is that for your customer? So for example, we don't have a mobile app for our planners who use our platforms because our platform is mobile optimized. But we offer an offline itinerary app for them to give to their travelers so they can access their itineraries even when they're traveling. So it's important to recognize that mobile apps can be, well, should be quite specialized. And it's always important to answer that question for your business: which one do you really need? And whether or not you build your own, you got to think about, are you doing App Store, Apple? Are you doing Android? Are you doing both? That's pretty much it these days, but it costs money to host those two, and you have to continuously maintain those and sort of keep up with all the security updates and things like that. And then you have to get people to download it. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about this. We actually only recently launched our mobile app. So anyone who is thinking about this, let me know, because I have a lot of thoughts and lessons about building and delivering mobile apps. So the last category is marketplaces. We've talked a little bit about this. I think the main thing here is about data ownership. And actually, that's the thing I really want to sort of hammer home for you, is all of these things, you're going to be shopping for features, for price. You're going to get so caught up in all of that that you forget a very, very important piece, which is your data. So you need to make sure that whatever platform you have, or if you do custom build with a developer, that in the end, you have the keys to your data. And if that's, a database backup because it's custom built, or if that's the ability to export all your data out of your CRM, all of these things, you need to know that at a legal level, you have the right to get the data out. And from a technical standpoint, like, do you have the password? Do you have the capability of getting that data? This is something that a lot of non-technical people miss, and it can be the thing that destroys a project in terms of, if you don't have access to your data, you don't have access to the most valuable thing. And when you're thinking about data, there's a couple of different flavors. So there's the analytics, which is tends to be anonymous, often aggregated across all your people, and it provides you insights like, oh, all my travelers are coming from America. Okay, I should price in US dollars, for example. And then you've got subscribers. These are actual names, addresses, maybe what trips they've been on with you, or what articles they read from you. This is actionable, and this is how you build loyalty. This is your audience, and this is what I was talking about in terms of bringing that into your own databases, or if it's on a platform like ours, bringing it onto a platform where you own your data rather than the platform owning your data, which is the case with YouLi. So finally, the content. This is something people don't always think about. They don't think that the images, the itineraries, the blog posts, all of that is your content. That's data. It's intellectual property. It needs to be accessible to the world, but it's also highly valuable. So you're kind of giving it away in a sense, but you need to make sure that you have control over it, because this is effectively your product, and you need to protect that and make sure that you're not just giving it away without capturing the value that you've created. So when you think about platforms and you think about making decisions about technology, be thinking about, okay, which kind of data am I putting into these platforms, or what kind of data do I want my custom built solution to manage, and how am I going to get access to that? How am I going to make sure I'm in control of my data? So it's a big one, and it's a challenging one, but it's super important. And so I really wanted to sort of, with this presentation, give you a very high level of the concept of platforms and the idea of building a tech stack completely out of platforms. Now, that's a bit of a dream. I don't think these days you can quite pull that off unless you're super, super small, but I think it's almost there. And I think over the next 10 years, it's gonna get to the point where the majority of non-tech businesses will actually be building their entire tech stack out of platforms that just talk to each other via APIs. Then you don't have to hire a developer. You just get to talk to people like me who understand your problems, solve that problem, and connect into the other pieces of your tech stack. So that's the idea behind platforms. It gives you choices because these platforms are competing against each other. So it drives down the price, and we're constantly trying to do better. We're constantly releasing new features. I mean, look at Airbnb, it's always getting better, right? Our platform, we're releasing every 2 to 4 weeks new functionality. You're not gonna get that at a custom dev shop because they're gonna be like, oh, you want that new feature? That'll be another $2,000. So platforms give you that constantly evolving and improving kind of technology stack, but you have to do your research, and you need to make sure that you're not giving up your data in exchange for something in a way that doesn't work for your business. So when that trade-off doesn't work, then you're going to have to go and build it yourself. So hopefully I've given you enough of an idea of the kinds of questions and challenges and trade-offs. And I really just wanted to end with a webinar offer for those of you who've joined. If you are interested in checking out what we do, we actually bring a number of things together into one platform. We do personalized bookings and payments for group trips, so you can do split payments or group payments. We have an interactive itinerary, both online as well as the mobile app, and then we do pre and post trip engagement through tasks and documentation and documents. And of course, you can sign up for free and try it out. And we're offering you a crew starter package. If you sign up from this webinar, we'll be offering a discount off of our normal premium tier, which drops your booking fee to 0. So check that out, sign up, and yeah, hopefully this was helpful and got you thinking about technology and all the questions that you have to ask. And I am now happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jen. That was very, very helpful. Can you please share the link for the sign up with us on the chat? If you don't have it now, we will also include it in the email that we sent out to all people who registered. So don't worry, you will receive that. Yeah, thank you, Victoria. We have the link in the chat box. Anyone else have any questions for Jen? Put them in the chat box. We do have one more, actually. How can people stay up to date with how these tech stacks evolve and update?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How can people stay up to date with how these tech stacks evolve and update?
Yeah, so I think each one of them kind of has their own way of communicating. So, you know, some platforms like Facebook and Google, they just change things and you kind of figure it out based on the changes happening. But of course, platforms like us, we will notify you whenever these changes are happening. So you can actually follow us and sort of see when these changes are happening and kind of read along. And so I would say most of the specialized software as a service platforms like us would be publishing information on what they're doing and how they're evolving and changing. And if they don't, then usually if you contact them, they'll be able to provide you with some kind of information on that. And of course, the bigger you are, the more information you can get out of the platforms, right? So is there a particular aspect? What region is the person coming from that asked that question? Like, are they worried about GDPR or anything like that? Oh, hey, Ian. Yeah, I think one of the things that can be challenging is depending on which country you're in, like different jurisdictions apply. So for example, we recently released a feature to add surcharges. So if you're accepting credit card for your travel booking, there's a charge to that, right? So it can be anywhere from 1.75% up to 3%, depending on what country you're in and what payment gateway you have. And we now offer the ability to actually pass that fee through to your traveler. So when they choose credit card as compared to wire transfer or something else, then they pay that extra surcharge for that convenience. But that's not legal in all jurisdictions, in all countries. So for example, in the EU, you're not allowed to do that. So, so one of the challenges also when you're evaluating platforms is they might have a feature, the software can do it, but you can't use it in your country. So there's so many layers to these kinds of things. But it's still better to have the option, and it's still better to be working with a platform that puts all this functionality out there that you might use. Yes. So in terms, so I'm just reading Ian's follow-up question.
Let's repeat the question for the recording.
Yeah, so there's so many updates that come out that it can be quite, oh, sorry, it's hard to read this. And new platforms launched every month. Are there any websites you read to keep up to date on new platforms? Yeah, I guess Product Hunt is a pretty fun one. They're not specialized in travel. Obviously, if you're specialized in travel, Travel Massive is a great place to follow along, because I think any platform that's in the travel space is going to put themselves up on Travel Massive. But Product Hunt is really fun for every possible thing, an app to help you make animated GIFs, an app to make your time more efficient. So, so Product Hunt actually is a really good suggestion for checking those out, actually. But also just go search, any new product, any platform that launches is going to make sure that they're findable in search. So if you're looking for a particular solution, go type it into Google and see what platforms come back. Ooh, laptop tech stack, Mac or PC, does it matter? So that is such a great question. Because so I'm a Mac person and my co-founder is a PC person, and also we have a mobile app for Apple and we have a mobile app for Android, and so those are sort of competing tech stacks. So we kind of have to live between all these worlds. And what's great about platforms is since most of them are web enabled, pretty much all of them work on all the platforms, especially if you've got Chrome, because your Chrome browser works the same on Mac as it does on PC. And so you don't really have a problem these days. And actually, I would say anybody who's trying to sell you custom development, either on the Mac or on the PC, stay away, because you really want to be building software that is accessible via the web, so it doesn't matter what your laptop is. And then you get to pick the one you like. Let's see. Pam just made a comment that she checks for integrations that Zapier offers. That's a really good point. So Zapier is probably another great place to go hunting for platforms, because they connect all the APIs between them. So you can automate, when you get an email form submission from your Google Forms, it can trigger off to MailChimp, but also update your CRM, and also maybe, post into Slack. So that's the kind of stuff we like to do. Our team is on Slack, which is a team messaging system. So whenever something happens that our team cares about, we have automated triggers that post that into Slack. And we do actually run those out of Zapier. So good point, Pam. And Alex B mentioned, yeah, so YouLi is a multi-day trips platform. And do we have a roadmap to include day tours and daily schedules? So absolutely, we would love to move into day tours and daily schedules. We're still a relatively young company, so we're really focused on the multi-day group tours right now. And yeah, we're definitely looking forward to getting to the point where we can move into day tours. So do we have an API on YouLi? We do currently have an API on YouLi, but we're currently testing it with our enterprise customers before we roll it out for everyone. So that's one of the things that you're gonna find with a lot of platforms like us, is that since we're building it for everybody, we need to build something, test it with some people before we roll it out to everyone, because we wanna make sure it works for you. And because that's what you should expect from a platform. You should expect you sign up that it just works. Whereas if you do a custom build, you need to test it and make sure it works. Whereas with a platform, it should just already work. So, so we're in the sort of that phase, working with our enterprise clients to streamline our APIs and make sure that those are something that you guys can just count on every single day. Do you recommend that startups and tour companies have a tech co-founder or a tech director on board the team? I guess I'd like to say that you don't have to, because you know, you should be able to run your travel business without having to be a tech person. And I think that's the dream of the platform world, and that's part of what we like to think that we're offering for our clients, is that we're kind of their tech co-founder, because we spend all this time worrying about UI design and, you know, various exploits and what's the best cloud to host on and all these things, so that all they have to do is click, make a trip, publish it, collect registrations, look at their documents, run their trips. Now, if you're trying to do something that none of the platforms do, you want to do something super custom that no one offers as a platform, then if you don't have a technical person inside your business, you're probably going to get ripped off. Someone is going to notice that you don't understand the technical conversation, and they're going to charge you more than they should. So if you are building custom, you need to have a trusted technical advisor helping you through that process, who doesn't have an incentive to sell you more software than you need. So, but yeah, I think our dream as platform creators is that we can allow you guys to not have to have a tech co-founder.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions? If not, we can wrap this up, and I have a final question for you. What are your goals and expectations for 2020? And yes, what's up for YouLi and you?
Yeah, so 2020 is going to be a big year for us. We're rolling out a lot of new functionality, including the APIs should be public very soon, and a lot of extra add-ons to our platform. And we are really specializing also into experiential and transformational travel. So we're super excited to see what happens with our partnership with Transformational Travel Council. They are an amazing new organization based out of Seattle, but with global membership. So we are powering their marketplace, and we're really excited to see how they grow and how we can help them scale up.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jen. That was very helpful. If there are no other questions, okay, we do have one. Alex is saying, when you talked about with travel and your online reputation on collecting payments can be bad. How do you compare, as they do not charge for subscription fees, just 1% of the amount, and credit card fees?
Yeah, so we're sort of an payment gateway agnostic. So we travel sort of bundles everything together, whereas we say kind of bring your payment gateway with you. So if you use Square, bring that. If you use Stripe, you bring that. If you use PayPal, you bring that. And we connect to their APIs on your behalf and just take care of that for you. Sort of kind of like what you would do if you did a custom website with a booking form and you paid a developer to do that. Well, we've already done that. So you just get started, click a button, connect your payment gateway, and you go. But of course, that means that the price that you pay depends on your reputation. So if you have a lot of volume, you're going to pay less with those payment gateways. But if you have very little volume, then you're going to pay their standard rate. And that depends on your country. So I can't say what the rate is because it completely depends on what your currency is and what your payment gateway is. But if you're on one of our premium plans, which the Cruise Starter is one of them, we don't charge a booking fee for those credit cards. So you just pay whatever your payment gateway rate is. And so we give you so much more control over that. Whereas with WeTravel, it's a great way to get started if you have low volume, but it may not scale with you. So that's just something that you kind of want to look into, where you're at with the business and which kind of platform is going to suit you better. When will your webinar offer end? So if you sign up after the webinar in the next week, then you're qualified for this offer, and we can just sort of see where you go. So if you sign up based on the webinar, then that offer is available to you. Yeah, and there's that link for you. So hopefully you guys that are interested in the platform that we provide, we'd love to get your feedback after you sign up for the trial. And if there's anything that I kind of talked about just generally about other platforms, yeah, ping me. I'm on social. I'm around.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Let me remind to everyone that the recording will be available later today or tomorrow, and we will also include all the links, Jen's contact, so you can get in touch directly with her. Also, thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all the answers, Jen. And if you're coming to Berlin next week for ITV, for Berlin Travel Festival, or for Travel Massive Forum, stop by and say hi to the Travel Massive team. We'll be very happy to meet you. Thanks again all. It was very nice talking to everyone, and see you in Berlin or see you on Travel Massive Live in the future. Thank you, Jen.
Bye.